deleted on Facebook. What? Was deleted and it just doesn't let me because it says whatever.
Modern technology.
Okay, we are live. Looks like we were live. Your streamer was. Your stream was deleted on Facebook. Do you want to go in there and but then it was going live already. Okay. So we're here. I don't know, but I'll check if it's going to be on Facebook. Otherwise, we might miss Facebook because it disconnected.
Right.
All of a sudden, but we should be on some platform on Rumble for sure, on YouTube, and hopefully we didn't lose on Facebook. And I'm with Sacred Blue Heron Woman, who has been shoveling lots of very rich soil for her plants in BWD Ranch in Oklahoma. And she's here to share with you guys and to share with me, and we're all here to listen to this amazing story of the continuation of this amazing story of Seitai. The 112th Agni Living conversation gets started right now.
Wow.
So welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome. So we'll start again with the statement. The last thing you want to harden in your body is your solar plexus, because if it hardens, it will tell you the exact day and hour of your death.
That's something to remember, huh?
Yeah.
and what sign is there of hardening the solar plexus? What happens when you do that?
We're all hard in the solar plexus. We are. It's that's where our attention gathers.
Okay.
Most of us, the vast majority of us are. The best way to tell if you are is to sit in your chair, take a deep breath, put your fingers right below your sternum here, and bend over and exhale. If it hurts, you're hard. You've got stalactites in there.
Okay.
It's probably one of the most common places for inertial patterns to lodge. Because it's such a rich area. So tonight we're going to talk about the spontaneous self and the dressed self, the spontaneous I and the dressed I. So remember, we ended last week with one self is created, that's the dressed I, and the other creates, and that's your spontaneous self.
Okay.
So your spontaneous self, your spontaneous I is born from your cells. Your dressed I is the socio-cultural result of domestication. The formation of your dressed I begins at birth. In your aerobic existence, your two selves are very important and need to coexist and cooperate. However, what is typical is that the dressed I becomes so strong that it smothers your absolutely essential spontaneous I, until the solemn moment of death when the dressed I fades away and the spontaneous I is in control again. So the point is to not let your dressed I smother your spontaneous self till death. So your dressed I, your domesticated self, cultural, social, religious intelligence, is the part of you that you know best and tend to completely identify with. In fact, you probably believe that this dressed I is the only real self. And your dressed I believes that it can do everything by sheer willpower. Your dressed I is the legacy offered to you, and I'm very acquainted with that. I'm very acquainted with my dressed I, who knows it can do it, thinks it can do everything by sheer willpower. Very acquainted with that. So our dressed I is the legacy offered to us by our parents, teachers, and the people in the village where we were born, the language we have learned, etc., etc., etc. It is not, by any stretch of the imagination, it is not your organic self. You're not a simple copycat. You make all these external inputs yours, giving them your personal touch. So you are the product of what you receive and of what you are able to create around yourself. And all of this time that you've been alive, no one has ever told you about your spontaneous self. So if we use the metaphor of an iceberg, your spontaneous I would be the great mass of submerged I, and your dressed I would be the ridiculous little bit protruding out of the sea. Even though that ridiculous little bit was enough to take down the Titanic, it's still a little ridiculous bit compared to what's underneath. Mm-hmm. All of the cultured, educated, and dressed parts of us are changing and ephemeral. All the spontaneous parts, our vital intelligence and desire, are natural and rigorous and form our true, authentic reality. Curiously, what we are born with spontaneously, we do not tend to accept easily. So spontaneity, while we're talking about our spontaneous self, spontaneity is not synonymous with a lack of control, because nothing has more control than flowing spontaneity. And as the domesticated self always preserves its wildest part, even though it smothers it, it never is able to free itself from its spontaneous self. Mm-hmm. Now, wild means untamable, uncaged, untamable, not crazy. That wild part of you flows dynamically and creatively as long as you do not try to cage it. That's the spontaneous I. The spontaneous is regulated by spontaneous cellular intelligence, and it's not to be taken lightly. And when your spontaneous is so smothered that it's not working properly, your whole life is trapped by anxiety. Your spontaneous I is the natural and autonomous activity of you. It is the unity of your psyche and your organism that is born from your cells. You think, you feel, and you imagine spontaneously, and that occurs because you are alive and is absolutely radically different to what comes from your conditioned, your domesticated self. Mm-hmm. Your dressed I has no direct relation to your organism, and it has been formed through exterior stimulus only. Your spontaneous I will show itself to you when you start to observe it. It is so fundamental for your life. Your spontaneous I is your inner child, your subconscious, and it's actually kind of shy. So you have to court it. You have to really engage. Be gentle with it. It's kind of like a deer in the forest running. Okay. If you chase it, it'll run faster.
Okay, yeah, that's a good analogy.
Learning from your spontaneous self is learning directly from life, from creation. It's learning how to be here and how to leave, to know how to say goodbye. You came to this planet naked. You landed thanks to your spontaneous self, and when you go, your dressed I will have absolutely no value. It will be your spontaneous I that leads you through the process of leaving your body and changing into pure energy again. Perceiving your spontaneous I is very important because it is directly related to everything fundamental to your life. So you're falling in love, you're blinking, you're breathing, your heartbeat pumping, your blood around your body, the way you connect to your deep desires, to your integrity, to the relationship between the individual you and the you that's integrated in the universe. Your spontaneous I arises from your CVP, cranium, vertebrae, pelvis, especially from the non-conscious cellular activities, and it is they which generate our consciousness. So your spontaneous I is an association of the conscious and non-conscious cell groups. Mm-hmm. And I say conscious and non-conscious rather than voluntary and involuntary. Why? Well, let's explore the concept of falling in love. When you fall in love, you're extremely conscious of it, but your will, or rather conscious mind, can do absolutely nothing to stop it.
That's yeah, neat. Very neat.
We want our lives to be balanced and controlled, and yet for 99% of us, life is more like a total soap opera. The more disconnected your dressed eye and your spontaneous eye are, the more amusing the soap opera of your life is. Your spontaneous eye is the one that is connected to your desire to imagine, to act, to get excited, to fight, to vibrate with the immensity of life. That person was the one suitable for you, but you adopted this one suitable for your family and silenced your spontaneous eye. So your spontaneous eye is very accustomed to living with a gag on. In fact, every time in your life it has tried to take it off, you handcuffed it. You stuffed the gag back in and handcuffed it. If it tried to get through to you through an ailment, you gave it a good shot of medicine. If it rose in the form of desire, you gave it a good moral or emotional thrashing and complied with the book of law in your head, in your brain. However, your spontaneous eye is more stubborn than all your surroundings together, and again pulls down all that you have built up simply because it has a lot more tools than you do. And it will be a demon. Your spontaneous eye wants to blossom, to live with everything you have learned, to express all the force of life that it acquired at its origin that catapulted it into this world. But we consistently ignore it. And our spontaneous self does not like to be silenced.
Mm-hmm.
Our dressed eye can and will be so much more interesting when it interrelates with our spontaneous eye, and both will enjoy life more when they can express themselves and respect each other. Both require flowing interaction, or Eine.
Mm-hmm.
It is necessary to abandon the insubstantial and penetrate the path of natural rigor, which leads us to connect with the only thing we have, which is life. And this can only be accessed by observing your spontaneous eye that arises from your organism in a natural way and very simply. You have dressed your mind, and every day we add more clothes. So it's time for the striptease to begin.
Yeah.
Noguchi claimed that we fear the extinction of ourselves. That would be the dressed eye. And that's not us fearing it, it's the dressed eye fearing the extinction of itself. However, the extinction of that eye must take place because whoever does so will achieve a totally full life in harmony with nature, or Zenzei. And he was referring to the self-centered, manipulative, dressed eye that hides your spontaneous eye, of course. That's the one that needs to be exterminated or made extinct.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to just say the principle of the first button that missed the buttonhole, because it's going to come much later.
Okay.
Is there anything more fascinating than traveling to the heart or core of something? We humans ask ourselves constant questions, and our pressing desire to know leads us to advance, to move forward. At present, there are thousands of scientists studying how our brain works. It has become an epic, titanic, exhausting journey. And a guy named Henry Markham said, in the world of science, we are going full throttle without actually looking where we're headed. So personally, Henry Markham doesn't think we're going to understand the brain this way. And he has realized that the dilemma that Noguchi expressed as the first button that you do up wrong. At some point in the beginning of this revolution of human knowledge, the shirt was wrongly buttoned up, and ever since then, everyone has gone off keel. Noguchi discovered the key by observing life from the perspective of movement. Vital intelligence developed by the vertical movement. It is interrelated with the central nervous system, CNS. This movement is the planning psyche, and it has its center in the head, the cranial cavity. Its expression is neuronal through the nerves. So vital intelligence by the vertical is central nervous system, nerves. Vital intelligence developed by the frontal movement is interrelated with the motor respiratory system. This movement of the pragmatic psyche has its center in the shoulders and chest, the thoracic cavity. Frontal movement stems from the shoulders. Its expression is muscular. Vital intelligence developed by the rotatory movement. It's interrelated with the eliminatory and recycling system, and this movement of the defensive combative psyche has its center in the waist. Its expression is reviewing and expelling everything that puts the organism at risk, and does so by mobilizing the entire axis in a spiral movement. Vital intelligence developed by the central movement is interrelated with the reproductive system, cell regenerator system, and connective system, or the fascia. The movement of the profound psyche has its center in the pelvis. So our brain is structured into 5 fundamental parts following the logic of the 5 movements. The planning psyche arises from the CNS and is contemplative. It gathers data and information. It compares, analyzes, synthesizes, both in the outside world and within our organism, and always from above. This is the planning psyche, the central nervous system. In their work of discernment, the neurons do not touch each other. They communicate through synapses and do not mix much with the rest of the body. This preserves organic objectivity. The pragmatic psyche that emerges, so this is the 5 fundamental parts of our brain, right? The pragmatic psyche that emerges from the muscular, motor, and respiratory system is what drives us forward, seeking the shortest path, and on the inside acts in a similar way, for example, in the lungs, because the respiratory tracts are like the fast-moving motorways through which oxygen is rushed straight into the blood. The emotional psyche that emerges from the assimilatory circulatory system is in constant contact with others on the outside and inside us both. All the digestive system requires is time. And this psyche always takes into account what is going on to its left and to its right. The combative psyche emerges from the excretory system. On the outside, it is a permanent state of alert, defending. The same thing happens inside. The sweat, the nephrons of the kidneys, the urine, everything acts in defense of our being through a rotating spiral movement. Think about this. No boxers defend themselves by sticking out their chest. Twisting their waist, they protect their face with their fists. The profound psyche that emerges from the reproductive, connective, and regenerative system acts on the outside the same way as is on the inside. Everything that is multidirectional in nature is instinctive and adaptive. It creates unity. It connects the cosmic with the nuclear. It tends toward compaction, closing inwards and downwards. Deep, intense, penetrating, and on opening it relaxes. So if any of these intelligences seeks supremacy and stops acting in a coordinated fashion, it enters into conflict with the rest. And this is when you start feeling bad at a cellular level. Noguchi was an extraordinary being without a peer in coordinated vital intelligence, and he was able to appreciate with great lucidity that everything is interwoven, and that there is cohesion between the biological, the energetic, and the psyche, and all this is connected through the continuous to and fro movement generated by vital movement. So our central nervous system. In vertebrates, this cell group tends to be situated in the upper foremost location. In embryonic evolutionary process, whatever is situated at the top is protected. That's why everything vertical is difficult to actually touch. In the case of humans, as in other vertebrates, it is protected by being inside the vertebral column and the cranium. And this way, it does not need to connect to any cell apart from the connective ones. Your CNS, central nervous system, which likes to be alone in this world, accepts the connection with these cells only because it has to be held someplace. It's given me a whole different idea of our bodies, this journey.
It totally does.
Never thought of my CNS as being a hermit, but that's where the hermit archetype would come from, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
As the independent brain cannot live off of volatile ideas and is of this world, it has to feed itself, it has to pee, it has to evacuate, oxygenate itself. So it carries out these activities through the blood vessels and connective cells. And this is as far as the social relationships go. Neurons, so as not to connect, do not touch one another directly. They do it through synapses, an indirect form of communication. They do it through yodeling.
Yep.
Through synapses, an indirect form of communication that is carried out from the tips of each neuron through chemical and electrical impulses, yodeling.
Mm-hmm.
The discovery that neurons were not an interconnected network, instead related to the sophisticated and sublime synaptic communication, comes from Navarran scientist named Santiago Ramon y Cajal. And, you know, I think I mentioned it to you before, in nursing school, we learned about the synapses. It never once ever dawned on me that our nerves don't touch each other. They never talked about it that way.
That's an amazing thing to learn.
Yeah, it is. Another curious thing is that your brain and CNS, do not directly participate in any vital task. Think about that for a minute. Your brain and your central nervous system do not directly participate in any vital task of keeping you alive.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping distance is the subtle way the brain attempts to have an overall vision of any visceral goings on. It does not get involved, it politely observes. From this distance, it receives information and processes it with objectivity. That's where our objectivity comes from, is the hermit, CNS hermit. All this is achieved thanks to its ability to ascend by vertical vital movement. The more information it obtains, the better, and it is great in the art of storage, remembering, ordering, and coordinating the information of everything that happens in the organism. This is the internal task that neural cells are doing, and also the entire central nervous system. You're not just central nervous system, you're also the autonomic or neurovegetative nervous system. So your neurovegetative nervous system is composed, this grand system is composed of two systems that are antagonistic to each other, your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. For science, this whole matter is resolved by interpreting that the autonomic or neurovegetative system is responsible for the automatic actions of our organism and treats all these as mere chemical reactions. And this is where the first button missed the first buttonhole. Maybe.
Yeah.
So behind these two systems is the movement of life and its intelligence. While the movement of the CNS is vertical in nature, those of the sympathetic nervous system, the SNS, are of a lateral nature and do so from both sides of your thoracics, 6, 7, 8, and 9 vertebrae. So the middle part of your thoracic spine, as well as your lumbar too. Curiously, these movements from left to right are found in the middle part of your organism. and also curiously inside the digestive cavity where the solar plexus is formed. This plexus is a dense nerve network that surrounds the ventral aorta, yep, the heart, and is responsible for innervating everything in the abdomen. It combines nerve fibers from both the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. Dialogue and conjunction. Everything that is in the middle dialogues. So from the movement, these 5 movements, where would the emotional part of your brain be? Well, we've heard that there's 2 hemispheres and that one side is logical and one side is creative. Well, that's a neuromyth.
Okay. Yeah, it's too simplistic.
It was in fact someone's theory, which everything is someone's theory, that became accepted as an absolute truth. And that's the story of our lives. We take someone's theory and accept it as an absolute truth. So the real center of the emotional brain is in the middle, the limbic zone. That's where the cerebral arteries branch out. Arteries, blood, communication, the union of the cerebral cortex with the heart. So lately, there's a lot of talk of another brain situated in your stomach, where there are around 100 million neurons, many more than in your spinal column. This network of cells allows a close contact between the digestive system and the brain through the vagus nerve, letting your brain know what is going on below. This lateral movement is a real gossip. The arrival of food into your stomach causes numerous hormones to be released into your bloodstream, and they go everywhere gossiping. Gives a whole new meaning to gossip. Knowing that everything inside your blood system is a gossiper. So only by observing the formation of the nervous system and the spinal cord in the embryonic stage can we perceive how your sympathetic, your SNS, is created in an independent and special way, quite unlike your PNS, your parasympathetic nervous system, which does not show any special features or stem directly from any vertebrae. Your vagus nerve or parasympathetic nervous system stems from the spinal bulb, the brain, and goes directly to your organs. And it is this way that your PNS, your parasympathetic, counteracts the action of your sympathetic. It also partially stems from your sacral coccyx area. Your PNS, parasympathetic nervous system, is frontal movement and totally devoid of laterality. It doesn't go side to side. And modern medicine does not take this into account at all. Mm-hmm. Your sympathetic SNS works almost exclusively to accompany the assimilatory circulatory system, and its whole movement is lateral, from left to right, right to left. So your organism permanently alternates between active and passive action, and one is not more intelligent than the other. True intelligence lies in the overall coordination of the whole organism. All, of course, has to do with vital movement, and it's already defined in the embryonic process. A mosquito is almost winter, and I've still got mosquitoes flying around. So for example, if you have nerve cells that move multidirectionally, resulting in the creation of conjunctive neurons, and it's not an if. For example, you have nerve cells that move multidirectionally, resulting in the creation of conjunctive neurons, and later become responsible for the creation of your skin. Your skin is intelligent and knows how to discern something as fundamental to your existence as detecting a fire nearby. Is that not intelligence? So the fun of Seitai is not so much in this, quote, heavy stuff, but in learning to establish a dialogue between your conscious and non-conscious selves, between your spontaneous and your dressed self. Mm-hmm. So, and you can reset your entire being to live all the potential that life offers to you. So there's three ways with Katsugen Undo, the gymnastics that develops your spontaneous self, brings it out of being smothered. Yuki, which is also Reiki, which is organ energy, is heightening the sensitivity and communication that cultivates the spontaneous dialogue. And then Gyoki is the gymnastics, or the Chinese call it fairy fingers, to exercise the muscles that activates the tenderness of Yuki within oneself and others. So will you choose to be free of the fear of disease? Because fear is synonymous with paralysis. Capitalism sells what it needs, not what you need or even really good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I've told you so far from the beginning of this, you can really throw away and discard, because until you bring it into the realm of experience, it's confined to the realm of it, the inane, and it does you no good. So practicing Katsugen Undo, Reiki or Yuki, or working with organ energy and your fairy fingers is up to you. But know that what is really important in life is learned spontaneously. The tribes of many primitive cultures cultivated experience as a vital foundation. It served to empower the individual in the future. A just society protects its individuals as they give their best to contribute to the common good. Experience is a gift that cannot be inherited. So the Katsugen Undo practices are pure spontaneity and will reconnect you with your spontaneous self. When your body is naturally regulated, it naturally manifests its excesses and its deficiencies. To observe them and calmly pass through them, with them, reconnects your two selves. And life manifests itself without any complications, without expecting admiration or results. To do any kind of practice, thinking, and it's not just Katsugen Undo, it's some forms of Tai Chi, some Qigong will also stimulate. The Bagua Zhang, I think is how it's pronounced. Circle walking is another form that will activate your spontaneous cells. Okay. So, but to practice thinking that you're going to get something in return is absolutely catastrophic for your practices. And Katsugen Undo practices are so simple, so easy to do that they can really seem silly. And actually, the majority of Katsugen Undo practices are your natural stretching, but not the way we do stretching. Mm-hmm. Not stretching and holding the stretch. It's stretching to maximum tension and then instantly releasing, because that's like a rubber band. Right? We stretch thinking if we force and we hold the stretch to a count of 10, thinking if we then we let go and we do it again, and we're just causing our spontaneous self to say screw you. But so simple stretches are not that silly or simple, because they're crucial for our CVP coordination, our cranium, vertebrae, pulse, pelvis, so that life is alive, so that everything within us is well oiled. So Katsugen Undo means the movement at the source of life. Living without vigor is an incongruity that only occurs in humans. Shall I say that again? Living without vigor is an incongruity that only occurs in humans.
Okay. Yeah.
There is no human-designed exercise that mobilizes you as a whole being, and Katsugen Undo does. It moves tissues, nerves, organs, tendons, vertebrae, cells, energy, and the psyche. It's the ultimate expression of not doing, of not analyzing. It is simply living and feeling. There are many activities that unite body and mind and that deepen breathing like yoga. I'm not going to say that Katsugen Undo is better than all of them. It's simply a unique, incomparable, and genuine discovery. And it's an activity that life requires. It becomes a natural and spontaneous activity then that life does to recover health and self-regulate. So during your practice of Katsugen Undo or flowing Tai Chi, Qigong, you connect to your life force that created you and keeps you alive. And not so much yoga, because yoga is all about form. And I think Kundalini yoga is closer, but most yoga teachers are missing. They have no clue about this. So anyway, we're not going to get on that soapbox and say that yoga is bad, because I'm not. So illness versus EPT, or excessive partial tension. Relax the overexcited tension in your body. The natural to and fro of the muscles is fundamental for your life to bud. It is a mistake to think that in order to release the energy of your organism, it is necessary to tense your stiff muscles further. All you have to do is look at somebody who crosses the river on a tree trunk, or one who has mastered the art of traditional calligraphy, to see relaxation, spontaneous movement. While we are contracted, we cannot externalize our deep force. The continuous contraction that is provoked by worry or fear does not constitute a natural state in the human being. Hirochika Noguchi said that.
Difficult to pronounce.
Yeah, well, I always get the vowels right. Japanese is quite easy, but I'm getting them mixed up. So we live lives immersed in stress and haste. In the state of chaos and madness that we live in, we have all silently agreed that the modern evil of the human being is tension, that tension is bad. Well, the simple fact is, without tension, there would be no vigorous erections for a penis with which to enter a vagina. Organ energy, orgasmic potential. Without energy, that doesn't happen. Or without tension. So if there was no wonderful tension, the world would not exist. The fundamental tension for life is autonomous or autogenous tension. And these words were created to point out the two basic phases of movement that are tension and relaxation, and they're missing the other two from organ energy. Wilhelm Reich, the spark that ignites the tension, the discharge, and then the relaxation. But this continuous to and fro from one side to the other, the pendulum swinging, this is AT, or autonomous or autogenous tension, the life force. And the life force, when tuned, sensitive and awake, is able to pass from 0 to 100 in a flash. And you can observe this in a cat. Imagine it sleeping peacefully. However, if a group of kids rush into the room screaming and playing, that cat organism is instantly erect, arched in a matter of a nanosecond, lips pursed, releasing a prolonged blood-curdling hiss. The children go back out the door. The cat stretches, licks itself a couple of times, lies down, falls asleep again, from 100 to 0 in the blink of an eye. Well, what happened? The cat's AT system is in perfect working order and will work like that over and over and over again, because its tension relaxation system is perfectly oiled to respond to stimuli, perturbations. Now, if by any circumstance the cat, having tensed, is unable to release that tension, somewhere that tension will be sealed and the rigid zone developed. And most usually that tension is sealed in our solar plexus. Little by little, it loses its natural ability to tense and relax. Its sensitivity has become more and more deadened and does not notice till the tram is on top of it. So that cat is you and I and the vast majority of humans, and that tram that runs us over is what is commonly called disease. And all it is that our autogenous tension system is out of sync. Our wonderful ability to stand erect has given us a wonderful creative mind, but that's coupled with a destructive side. Imagination is a double-edged sword. We have the capacity to generate ideas to improve our environment. However, when this creativity becomes twisted, our minds get overexcited and create a silly imaginatory world. And so we create and believe our fears. We are disturbed by things that don't really matter, and fear traps and immobilizes us. So our organism as a whole is responsible for our overexcited minds. Nothing in us works in isolation. We are activated by life. Life acts through us as a whole and in constant coordination, conducted by our vital intelligence, flowing freely thanks to vital movement until that vital movement is slowed down by a lack of to and fro. The pendulum stops swinging. Without movement, life coagulates. Breathing becomes shallower, and it is at this moment that vital intelligence begins to lose communication and to alter itself. Your organism is a useful tool for allowing life to live. Getting back to the cat and excessive partial tension, or EPT, let's call it coordinated organism dominated by dissociated mishmash. That's the one. That's not the cat that goes back to sleep from immediately, right? That's us. Coordinated organisms dominated by mishmash. A life that was born healthy loses this health and its ability to respond because its natural action of tension and relaxation has been restricted. And since we all love diagnoses so much, here we have one. Vital movement insufficiency in the organism syndrome. That's what everyone's diagnosis is across the board. Vital movement insufficiency in the organism.
Well, what is that?
That's a diagnosis.
I really never heard of it.
No, it's a new one. Vital movement insufficiency in the organism. It's the cause of disease.
Sounds made up.
No, it's not. This is the absolute truth. Vital movement insufficiency in the organism causes hardening.
Okay, yeah, but that makes sense. But yeah.
So when the phantom of anxiety, apathy, sadness, and aggression takes over our life, there is something real happening. When we feel that we can't cope with our lives, it is because we have lost our to and fro, the vital capacity to tense and relax, and our heartbeat is altered and our breathing shortened. Life always uses the organism to act and respond to stimuli. If there is something out of the ordinary, the norm would be for our cells to begin emitting alarm signals. The more fluid the organism is, the better it will respond. And conjunctive cells are usually the most resolute in matters of urgency and are the ones who take charge. They belong to central movement and are good in the trenches, contracting the whole organism. That concentration, that ability to condense, that tension is fundamental to facing terrible news. But after the news, will the body recover its to and fro? If it is not well oiled, that awful news can affect an individual for life. And so 1 millisecond can rule the rest of your days. A spontaneous, coordinated chest abdominal breathing defends us from any casualty. There are those who get into an emotional and painful maze and never manage to get out. This EPT, excessive partial tension, strangles, paralyzes, and renders us incapable of acting, or prompts us to act too fast without coordination. EPT, or excessive partial tension, can make us totally rigid, or even worse, slack and flaccid. EPT.
I'm trying to hook up because it's running out of battery.
Yeah, I thought you were just doing handstands.
I'm like, because I can't, since now it's hooked up, and the cable goes on the bottom, I can't put it on the stand, and this won't turn automatically, so whatever. I'll just hold it. Keep going, sorry for that.
No problem. Excessive partial tension, or EPT, is an immobile beacon, a place where movement does not flow, stagnant water. EPT is at the root of all our problems and cannot be interpreted as a mere physical problem. Medicine always focuses on an organ, on an intervertebral disc, on the abnormal functioning of a gland, or on a specific mental problem. But EPT affects the whole. A damaged organ has specific connections with specific vertebrae, specific physiological functions, and an equally specific overexcitement in the psyche. EPT is relentless and never subsides. And without realizing its existence, you begin to live with it, telling yourself that this is all part of aging or some other nonsense, and so you learn to live with the enemy. No organ can malfunction while the psyche is in the folds of a vigorous and natural chest abdominal breathing. Let me say that again. No organ can malfunction while the psyche is in the folds of a vigorous and natural chest abdominal breathing. That's why Wim Hof is having so much success with his breathing technique, because it is full on chest abdominal breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So Noguchi came up with this word taiheki, which is the tension that you are born with. You inherited it. So you could be born with a great tendency to think, to ideas. This would be your taiheki. Then your body will have similar characteristics, which means you will always have your head in the clouds, projecting and devising. Or maybe your taiheki is pragmatism. So you're one of those born with powerful shoulders that right from the beginning, your restless soul is seen and you're running around doing things all the time, always pragmatic. Or your taiheki could be a food lover who laughs angelically, but then can just as easily cry or have a temper tantrum demanding everyone's attention. So your digestive and emotion system emotions will be what governs your life. You could find it easy to twist your body and be alert, and the vigor of your waist and everything to do with the urinary system will push you towards marking your territory, ready to fight and defend all you consider yours all the time. Or who knows, maybe you're someone who spends hours watching closely how ants are working, showing an incredible ability to condense yourself energetically. Sex, the deep psyche, the vibration, a connection with the intangible will be your beacon, and that's where your taiheki, your tension, your natural autonomous tension will be. So these specific tensions will make you see life in a particular way, make you who you are, and push you to succeed. And that's where we're going to stop tonight, because we're now going to enter the subject of how this excessive partial tension manifests in many different ways and through the 5 movements.
I'm eager to learn.
It's quite the journey. And Katsumi Mimina, he working with Noguchi, they the two of them came up with animal similarities. And so they were like, if someone looks like a giraffe, they have like 75 classifications, and it's not in English. None of this is, the only person who has this is a Laura Cotto, who lives in Italy. And it's so I don't think we need to quite put everybody into that many boxes. I think that's where they went too complex and lost their connection to simplicity. Those two men is to categorizing everybody so much, but we're not going to go that deep. We're just going to skim the surface of this, just to help understand how, and I'm going to explore this concept of AT, autonomous tension, more, because some spiritual work I've done with a Japanese lady, as a matter of fact, there were 3 different levels of God sparks that I went through with her. And I'm thinking those God sparks that she took me through might contribute to our autonomous tension, which would come from the 3 singing goddesses, right?
Wow. So do you leave this as always, like, give us a good salad, a good soup, kind of give us a taste of a main meal, but then there's so much more
Oh
that we
man,
want, that we want to learn, that we need to learn to make a full use of this wisdom.
well, and it is so important because the analogy of the cat, right? And I grew up with cats, so I know how valid that is, right? They instantly, they're hissing and growling, and then the tension disappears, and they're or not growling. The cats don't growl, but they're hissing and sparking, and then clawing, and then the next instant nothing happened. They're back asleep, right? So let's take that to PTSD. Okay. This is the problem. Is the lack of recognizing that tension needs to be discharged. The orgasm.
And I bet anybody listening to this likes that. Likes that. Like, wow, they're actually mentioning an orgasm.
Yeah, your muscle is. So when you have a muscle cramp, and we'll get into that, if not next week, the week after that, your muscle cramps are an orgasm trying to overcome the excessive partial tension to discharge, so it can relax. That's what a muscle cramp is. It's an orgasm.
Okay.
To release that.
What about when you get a cramp when you're having an orgasm? That ever happened to you?
There must be something there that needs to be discharged.
Yeah, sometimes I get that in my buttocks if I'm like spreading too much or something.
Yeah, so then there's a tension. There's a EPT stalactite there that needs to be orgasmed, discharged. So another story related to this is the gazelle on the African veld, right? A herd of gazelles is grazing calmly, quietly, but one eye is always attuned to see the movement, and once the guard spots a cheetah, right, gives the signal, the cough or the snort or whatever it is, to alert the herd, and they flee. But the guard is there to protect the herd, and so it instantly goes into, when the cheetah runs it down, it will freeze, so that in case the cheetah lets go, it can get up and run and be gone. And if the cheetah lets go, and it does, it's able to get up and run, it will shake just and shake, 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 shake to discharge all that tension. And the gazelle has no PTSD.
Yeah.
And that's where the Uruguayan rugby team that went down in their plane back in the 70s, the guys that hiked out, they had no PTSD from it because all that hiking, all that movement discharged all of that tension from the crash, hacking up their friends to eat them. Right.
Okay, that's good. That's good information. Really powerful information. And
but with our current treatment of PTSD, like one of the first veterans that came here, when we first opened, he started feeling things, so he went to his MD. Didn't want to feel them, so they put him on meds, and that slapped his ass in the bed. There was no discharge of anything then, nothing.
Yeah.
So he's become a stalactite.
Wow.
And I haven't heard from him again.
They sent him to, they helped him stalactize more.
Yep. Instead of saying, go back out there and work through the feelings and let all that tension discharge.
Yeah. Wow. So I guess that's the point for also when you're in trouble or something, yelling and shouting and allowing yourself to
discharge. Yeah.
To discharge and reminds me how the system looks at that. Like if you are discharging in a school or something, oh, you have anger management problems. Man, isn't the world upside down, huh?
It is.
Okay. Well,
it is. It really is. It's think of all you got to do is, if you can't remember, is think orgasm with everything. Everything's got to be discharged. You've got to have every cell in your body, every muscle needs to have an orgasm to discharge tension. Excess, right? Because it needs a certain amount of tension. Buckminster Fuller used the words tensegrity, coined the word tensegrity. So you need a certain amount of tensegrity. You need a tension, but too much tension, if you don't discharge it, will just freeze into a stalactite.
Oh, wow. Okay, so with this, we'll leave you with this much on the plate, and we'll leave you with this much more appetite for what's coming. And I just want to engage the folks that have been watching here live. I think there's a couple of them. Want to invite them to this new and ancient way of living. And if you want to check out the newly refreshed and updated website, alohainidaliving.com. You'll probably find the links anywhere around in our social media. And please join us next week at the same time, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, for a live conversation. Otherwise, you can watch them recorded on Rumble or YouTube and Facebook. And please engage with us. Please send us messages. Please let us know you're alive. And please relieve some of that tension. Doesn't matter if you want to criticize us. We'll gladly receive your criticism. If it helps you get out the tension.
Yeah. If criticism is your orgasm, then
yeah, if it gets you on, go for it. Alrighty, so with all that, send you lots of love, and I guess we'll leave it there. I'll end the live stream.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so see you folks next time.